Oh yeah, good point. We record in teams too. Yeah, no, I'm Steve. I've been CEO for Energy One for the past 10 years. Before that, I've worked in the credit union industry the last 30 years. But taking the CEO position when a credit union was struggling, we were able to make some adjustments, turn it around, and now we're thriving. But started out as a simple loan officer, working with consumers. We call them members at the credit union, and really, love the concept of people helping people, and got into the industry wholeheartedly, and have just grown from there. It's evolved over time. Today, being in it 30 years, probably managing people for the past 20, 25 years, I would consider myself more of a coach teacher today, looking to, get the most out of the employees we have, regardless of what level they're in, and trying to make sure that they, strive to be the best consumer people person as possible, serving as a not a sale, but as a solution to a problem that our membership has. Back when I started, I was younger, so when you have authority, you try to uh, figure out how you make or get people to work with you. So back then, I managed. So today I would say coaching, but back then it was trying to figure out how to get people to work with you. I was 29, and I was managing people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And so I had to really be a hands-on manager, working with them, showing them, telling, basically competing with them. It says, look, if I can do it, you can do it. And so we worked really hard at that until eventually my knowledge grew and experience grew, and I was able to start coaching more versus doing with. Does that make sense? Not sure what the style would be called back then, just a hands-on approach to management. Yeah, absolutely. If you treated everybody the same, you're only going to get more of a maybe a dictator type answer or solution. And so for me, I'd try to get the most out of everybody. And so you have to learn that person's personality, their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, their weaknesses. I've always been a believer in maximizing a person's strength and really kind of protecting their weakness. Not, you can minimize the weakness, you can work on your weakness, but it's always your weakness. So when I look at people, and I can quickly analyze, okay, this person has a lot of drive and willingness to learn and do. Maybe they need more training and education because their abilities are just limited at this point. You can quickly find somebody who just shows up. You know, Unfortunately, those are harder to coach. You have to manage. You have to give them expectations, set deadlines and goals. And so, dealing with the different personalities and the different desires and drive that individuals have makes your management style change. Oh, that was just the first question? Okay. I'll have to slow down on my answers then. Their willingness and ability. I've always looked at it from that perspective. If somebody doesn't have the ability, but man, they want to make a difference, you can tell. They'll bring up questions. Hey, what do you think about, this? And I love that when especially a young manager or a young individual who's aspiring to be more comes to me and says, hey, we've been doing it this way. I think, as I've watched it, I want to do it this way. What do you think? And so I encourage that more so than somebody who sits there and waits for their boss or their boss's boss to come in and go, hey, have you done those 5 tasks yet? Well, no, I'll get to them. I got until 4 o'clock. You know, no. So when you see people picking up the ball and running with it, as an analogy in football, I I migrate to seeing how much more I can work with that individual to grow. Makes sense? Going outside of their normal scope, is that what you're saying? Just like here's my job, but yeah, absolutely. So we're going through our strategic planning for 2026 now, and I decided instead of doing it in a bigger group director VP setting to break it out into small groups. Two reasons. One, because it allows those who are a little more apprehensive to speak out in a group to be more vocal. But two, allow me to analyze and um, really work with this younger group of directors that I've developed or starting to develop to see where they want to go. And what was interesting is that group, that was my first group, there were things that came out of their thought processes that I would have never figured they were thinking. And I think the biggest thing for me was there are ideas and thoughts out there to make our credit union grow and be better, maybe more efficient, maybe more effective. But sometimes they fall on deaf ears between them and me, and there's a layer or two sometimes in between. And so it was eye-opening just last week to say, wow, you know, these guys have ideas. Why are we not listening? Maybe they're half-baked, maybe they're wild, but they have these ideas. Their desire is to help our credit union grow. They're all in. How do we nurture that? How do we take that and coach them to get to a different level, actually building a business plan around an idea versus, huh, that's a wild guess. Let's just not do that, right? It's too much work. They're willing to work. Let's work with them. Yeah, I think in the retail world, you have to pivot quickly, and not always are you fully fleshed out with a good analyzed decision. A lot of times I've built my career on, hey, we're 80% accurate, we're ready to go, let's go. You've got 20% chance that you might miss something, but you can pivot quickly with 20% and fix that and move forward. I struggle with people who have to be 110% accurate before they start. So my personality sometimes is, hey, good enough information. I'm a risk manager. I'm not a risk eliminator. Let's take that risk and move forward. Have I been successful? Most of the time. Have I failed? Sometimes. But I think, when you can get the most out of that information, and you have to make a decision quickly, uh, you know, you go off of experience, you go off of gut feeling sometimes, and you go off of what and analytics you do have in order to make the best decision. Hmm, tough, many different ways. Um, try to think currently, and I work. I read I listen to podcasts. I read books. I'm kind of a John Maxwell follower. I love to listen to his podcasts. I've read several of his books. He's a guy that probably has the same values in just people that I have, but I've taken some of his experiences and thoughts and tried to bring that into play. A lot of times. I like to have them work it out first, especially if they're at a professional level. Hey, look, you're coming to me and complaining about Joe Bob here. Joe Bob's doing the best he can. He has a different view than you. You guys are now at odds. Why don't you guys go figure out what those odds are? Why is it so separate? And, let's communicate. Um, a lot of times that happens if they're good at it. If they just struggle, they're both stubborn. I facilitate a lot of times, and there are times that they really don't want anybody to make a decision. The other one is right. The other one, this guy's right. That girl's right. You know, maybe they're both wrong. Maybe they're both right. And so how do we compromise and how do we make sure that it's the best decision for our membership, not for somebody's ego or somebody's, thought process and what makes their life easier? What makes our membership's life easier? How do we serve them better? When we get back to that central core vision of what we're supposed to be doing, it usually makes sense to them. People sometimes forget. But how, Yeah, I bring that up a lot. How does it affect the member? What decisions are we making that affects the member in a positive or negative way? We're always trying to be the most positive we can. In our world of banking, it is very competitive in what I consider a commodity-driven product and service industry. Everybody has a checking account. Everybody has a car loan. Everybody has a home loan. All of that is pretty much the same. It's just margins or relationships that make a difference. And so if we're making a change, does it make it easier to do business with Energy One Credit Union, or is it just easier for you as a teammate because you don't want to do that extra step? And I think once we get there and we in our core vision is to serve and to serve to our best abilities to fix or to find solutions to the financial needs of our membership. People usually pull back in and go, "Okay, I get it." And for those who truly believe in our industry, if it's just a job, you got to tell them what to do. But those people who truly believe in what they're trying to do and trying to build a career out of it, it's easy to just bring back why we're here, and people usually fall in line. I measure, so I have really not over the last 10 years measured my personal success on the success of the credit union. Anything I do has been a sacrifice or an effort to make our credit union better. 10 years ago, we had financial struggles. Today, we're thriving. A big part of that is working through getting the credit union healthy and making sure that it is and has been for almost 10 years now. But I think the biggest thing for me is to bring back this to the staff. You know, did we serve our members better than we did last year? Did we meet the goals that we're trying to accomplish where we could, because we're not for profit, we generate an income. We have to, but then we try to give that back in the form of lower dividends in or higher dividends and deposits, lower loan rates on loans, but then invest in technology or conveniences to make sure that doing business every day is really a no-brainer for Energy One membership. It's easy to maneuver, it's easy to utilize, we're easy to communicate with, and we're trusted. So, I think those are the things that make us where we are today. You're welcome. I hope I didn't go too long. When you let me talk, I talk. All right.